Hello, I'm Dr. Akshay Mehta, and welcome to this short video on how important is cholesterol. I have chosen this topic because in the last few years, there has been some controversy in the media and in the social media about cholesterol, and which has created some confusion in the minds of people and patients of heart disease. Now, when we talk of cholesterol, there are two separate things: cholesterol in food and the cholesterol levels in blood. And when we talk of cholesterol in food, we should understand that there are two different kinds of foods. Foods which contain predominantly only cholesterol with some proteins and nothing much else which could harm the body. And these are typically the egg yolk and certain shellfish. Whereas there are other foods which, besides having cholesterol, have a lot of saturated fats, such as meat, cheese, butter, etc. And one should not confuse cholesterol foods as consisting of both these different kinds of foods. So when we talk that cholesterol is okay for the body or cholesterol foods are okay for the body, we should not mean the group of foods on the right hand side, because they contain a lot of saturated fats, and it is not the small amounts of cholesterol that are there in the left hand side picture, like egg yolk, which are so much harmful for the body as the foodstuff on the right hand side, because the cholesterol, pure cholesterol, which is consumed in the amount like an egg yolk or some fish, has much less effects on the blood cholesterol or on the body as compared to the saturated fats that are present in the cholesterol foods on the right hand side, such as cheese, butter, and meat. And it is this saturated fats which are uh, more responsible for raising blood cholesterol and harming the body. So one should understand that though cholesterol, pure cholesterol is allowed up to 300 milligrams intake per day, it does not mean that we should have the cholesterol foods which is mixed with saturated fats, because it is the saturated fats which are harmful. So having understood this thing, let us go to the next step, that is saturated fat harmful? Well, the American Heart Association and the bodies all over the world recommend that a low intake of energy should be from saturated fats and much lower from trans fats. And this guideline has been maintained even now. Whereas in the last few months and years, some people have raised the thought that butter, meat, cheese, etc. is healthy. And in fact, an article or a study called a Pure study published in Lancet published that it is the carbohydrates which were harmful for the heart and the body, and total fat and different types of fats related to lower mortality. So this has created a little confusion in the minds of people. However, a detailed analysis of this study, it has been found that this Pure study makes headlines, but the conclusions are misleading. So there are some flaws in this study. And what are the flaws? Number one, it is an observational study. Any observational study on diet can be very erratic, because there may be so many other factors which may influence the relationship between diet and health. That is one. So it is an observational study. And it is based on dietary recall only once at baseline. So over a period of 7 years, when the study was ongoing to see the results, it is difficult to ascertain the study. Then the total number of carbohydrates were lumped together. And as we know, there are different types of carbohydrates. There are those sugars or processed starches on one hand, and on the other hand, we have complex carbohydrates like uh, whole grains and vegetables and fruits. And one cannot lump all carbohydrates together. The harmful effect of carbohydrates comes from simple sugar and processed starch, and not from whole grains and fruits and vegetables. So this oversimplification is also probably an error in the study. And the other thing is high carbohydrate diets uh, is a predominant diet in the socio-economically lower strata of nations. And it is impossible to separate the effect of diet, which is which lots of carbohydrate, from the effects of poverty, undernutrition, and poor medical care in those countries. So this also may be a possible error in the study. Finally, actually, one patient in my clinic hit the nail on the head. He was a 45-year-old heavy American whose angioplasty was done a few months ago and who had some disease of other coronary arteries. And what he told me was revealing. He said that when I consume a good heavy meal of steak and burgers and chicken and French fries, and then when I start walking, I can hardly walk for long or so, and then I get heaviness in the chest. Whereas when I have fruits and vegetables and have a lighter meal, and when I walk, I have no heaviness. I can walk a mile without any problem. So that leads to idea that we must know that having saturated fats not only has long-term impact, such as raising of blood cholesterol and thickening of the arteries, but it has even a short-term effect on the arteries, not allowing it to dilate when required. That is called endothelial dysfunction, and also promotes clumping of platelets, which can clog the artery. So it has a heavy saturated fat meal can have short-term effect as well as long-term effects. So when we ask the question, are fats in food bad? It depends on what kind of fats. When we talk of monounsaturated fats and polyunsaturated fats, well, they are reasonable in certain amounts, but saturated and trans fats are harmful, and especially which depend on who is eating. For example, if a 25-year-old active person without any risk factor like hypertension or diabetes eats saturated fat, it may not harm him. If he has an occasional occasional meal with saturated fat. But on the other hand, if a 60-year-old who has already a heart attack eats saturated fat, it could be harmful for him. So who eats it is also important. And it's the saturated and trans fats which are harmful. So the main messages for nutritional advice have not changed. Abundant amount of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, and nuts are advisable, whereas moderate amounts of low-fat dairy products and seafood could be taken, and still lower amounts of processed and red meat, sugar-sweetened foods, beverages, trans fats, and refined grains. That means processed starch should be had. Such dietary pattern does not need to limit total fat intake, but the main type of fat should be unsaturated or polyunsaturated or monounsaturated and from plant sources rather than animal fat. Now we come to the next problem, blood cholesterol. Is it the cause of coronary heart disease? Before we answer this question, let us see a few facts. First of all, cholesterol is a fatty wax-like substance, and along with other fats like triglycerides and other HDL cholesterol, etc., it circulates in the blood and is required by the body for various functions. Majority of cholesterol is produced by our own liver in different amounts in different people. But this level is impacted by the food we eat and physical activity we do. In some people with genetic defects resulting in high amounts of cholesterol, especially LDL cholesterol more than 190 milligrams per cent, it is the one and a direct cause of coronary heart disease. In other people with little lower levels of cholesterol, it works like a risk factor, like hypertension, diabetes, smoking, obesity, physical inactivity, etc. Along with these risk factors, it is a co-worker. It works together with all these risk factors to create atherosclerosis or fatty deposition. So as you can see in this picture, if you have genetically high hyperlipidemia, like very high LDL cholesterol, that itself, by itself, can produce what is known as atherosclerosis or fat deposits in the lining of the coronary artery. Whereas other levels of LDL cholesterol, various levels, can work with all these other risk factors which injure the artery, causing its inflammation, the lining, and the cholesterol. The higher level it is, the more easily it can penetrate the vessel wall and create atherosclerosis. So it is a risk factor, and we have known over the years, the studies done in many people over many years has shown that beyond a level of 40 to 50 of LDL cholesterol, the greater the cholesterol, the greater the relative risk of coronary artery disease. This has been well established. And greater the number of risk factors like hypertension, diabetes, smoking, etc. Greater the number of risk factors along with cholesterol, greater the likelihood of coronary heart disease in men and women. So this has been very clearly found in population studies all over the world. But there is a question that we many times confront. Doc, why some people with low cholesterol or average cholesterol have heart disease and some with high cholesterol do not have disease? So there are some reasons for this. First of all, one reason is that other risk factors like hypertension or smoking may be predominant in these patients who have just average cholesterol. But for them, even this average cholesterol is too much because it can easily penetrate the artery and cause atherosclerosis. For example, in the Japanese, hypertension is a very predominant cause of atherosclerosis. Then it is likely that other lipoprotein particles, see all these fats which circulate in the blood, they are not circulating free. They are carried by what is known as particles or lipoprotein particles. An LDL particle or low density lipoprotein particle is one of the particles. So there are other particles in bloodstream such as LPA, intermediate density lipoproteins, chylomicron, VLDL, etc. And many times you have these in your blood reports also. So anyway, so other lipoproteins may be also present and create atherosclerosis, whereas LDL particles may be, or LDL cholesterol may be average or low. Then there could be a abnormality of the HDL cholesterol. It may be low, or more important, its composition may not be good, or its functionality may not be good. That means the ability to remove cholesterol from the fatty plaque. That is the function of HDL particle. That is why we call it a good cholesterol. And this cholesterol efflux capacity, which can be measured, but not very easily in the clinical practice, could be the cause of atherosclerosis. And finally, one should understand the relationship between LDL particle size. LDL particle is the particle which carries cholesterol, and the number of these particles. For example, we have two patients. On the left, we have patient A, and on the right, we have patient B. In patient A, the amount of cholesterol is carried by less number of particles, which are large in size. In patient B, the same amount of cholesterol is carried by larger number of particles, which are small in size. So larger the particle number, greater the chance of atherosclerosis. Hence, though both these patients have the same amount of cholesterol, say it is average or low, still the patient on B can have atherosclerosis because larger number of particles. So this is an important concept. Okay. Thus, the amount or mass of cholesterol or its level in blood may not correspond always with the number of particles in all individuals, and other factors also may modify its effect. That is why studies done on cholesterol as a risk factor may sometimes show contrasting results, but it is only sometimes. In majority of people, the level of cholesterol and number of particles, they correlate. So cholesterol becomes a good indicator. Hence, although cholesterol, especially LDL cholesterol, is a causative factor in most people, in some it may be the number of particles or other lipid abnormalities or risk factors that may be playing a role. And in those people, just knowing LDL cholesterol may not be enough. And other tests like ApoB, which gives an idea about the total number of particles, or non-HDLC or LPA or HDL particle number and efflux capacity, etc. may be required. However, in practice, LDL cholesterol is the most commonly utilized factor for treatment, as a risk factor and target for treatment, since it can be very easily measured. It correlates with the particle number in most people. It is seen to be associated with heart disease in a vast majority of people. And since the particle number cannot be easily measured routinely. So the next question is, okay, doc, what is the normal level of LDL cholesterol? Well, a better question to ask is, what is the desirable level of LDL cholesterol in a particular person? This is because there is no normal for everybody. What is normal or desirable for one is undesirable for another. That is why we talk of desirable level of cholesterol as per a person. And how does it change? The desirable level is decided by his or her overall risk for having heart disease in future. Higher the risk of having disease in future, lower is the desirable LDL cholesterol. And how do you judge the risk? Well, your doctor usually considers all these factors, like whether you have had cardiovascular disease in the past, like a heart attack or a stroke in the past, or whether your LDL cholesterol is more than 190, which itself is a big risk factor, or where you have a conglomerate of all these risk factors: diabetes, hypertension, kidney disease, smoking, increasing age, male gender, family history of heart disease, physical inactivity, abdominal obesity, diet, and psychosocial stress. So when you consider all these risk factors, one can make a judgment as to whether you are at high risk or low risk, and then we decide what is your desirable LDL cholesterol level. And we have this chart which can also guide us. For example, if you are at very high risk, as decided by all these risk factors, then your desirable LDL cholesterol is less than 55%, 55 milligrams percent, and treatment is lifestyle changes of exercise and diet plus drugs known as statins. Whereas if you have high risk, which is due to these risk factors and diabetes, etc., then the desirable level of LDL cholesterol is less than 70 milligrams percent. And besides lifestyle, it would be advisable to take these drugs called statins. Now, supposing you have neither of all these risk factors, or maybe one or two, and your risk is moderate or your risk is low, then your desirable LDL cholesterol is less than 100 and less than 116. And in that case, the treatment, supposing the cholesterol is more than this, the treatment is mainly lifestyle, exercise, and diet. And whether to take statins or not, along with lifestyle changes, should be decided by a conversation with your own doctor, and by knowing the benefits and risks of taking statins. So, supposing you are at low risk, and that means your cholesterol levels, the goal is less than 116 or less than 100, but the LDL cholesterol remains above 130 despite having a healthy lifestyle. So the question is, should one start a statin tablet? So as I said, it should be based on risk-benefit discussion with your doctor. And there are certain risk enhancing features which can help you guide whether to take statins or not. For example, if you have inflammatory disease like psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis, HIV, or if you have premature menopause, or you have a history of pregnancy associated conditions such as preeclampsia. Supposing we are South Asians themselves have a little higher risk, whether you have certain heart conditions, whether you have persistently elevated triglycerides of more than 175, or certain levels of certain chemicals in blood, such as HSCRP more than 2 milligrams per liter, LPA more than 50 milligrams per deciliter, ApoB more than 130, ankle brachial blood pressure index. This is found out by taking blood pressure in your ankles and in your arms. And if the ratio of blood pressure is less than 0.9, it suggests atherosclerosis. Coronary artery calcium score ideally should be 0, which means there is no deposit of coronary arteries, calcium in your coronary arteries, and they seem to be healthy. But if it is more than 0, then it suggests you have atherosclerosis. And if the chemical called as HS-TROP-T is detectable in your blood, then that also suggests or puts you at a little higher risk. So actually, there was a recent study which has shown that coronary calcium score and detectable levels of TROP-T, high sensitivity TROP-T, if both are present, then your risk of having disease in the next 10 years is approximately 19 to 20%. So that raises your risk and helps you guide take therapy. Of course, one should remember that doing a calcium score has its own hazard of radiation exposure. Hence, it should be done only after discussion with your doctor. So there are the other lipids also that one should consider. For example, triglycerides, it is better to have it less than 150 milligrams per cent, especially if it is associated with low levels of HDL cholesterol, abdominal obesity, hypertension, diabetes or pre-diabetes. And HDL cholesterol, higher the better, though it is the function that is more important. And then other factors like non-HDL cholesterol, various ratios that one should consider. But I would feel that the main thing that one should kinds of target is the LDL cholesterol. And these are secondary targets that one must consider later on. So if your lipids are abnormal, what do? First is lifestyle changes, low fat or low saturated fat food, minimize sugar, go for a Mediterranean kind of diet with fruits, vegetables and whole grains and legumes and pulses and nuts. Regular moderate exercise, 7 days a week or at least 5 days a week, 30 minutes every day. No smoking and no alcohol, especially if your triglycerides are high. Control of blood pressure, blood sugar and obesity. And whether to take drugs like statins or not, that depends on your conversation with your doctor. And one thing we should know that in appropriate people, they're extremely useful because they not only reduce blood levels of cholesterol, but stabilize and regress the fatty plaques that are there in your coronary arteries. For example, if this is a coronary artery with a fatty plaque, taking a good amount of proper statins along with lifestyle in some people where it is indicated, it stabilizes the plaque, does not allow it to rupture, and even shrinks the plaque. So statins are important drugs, but who should take and how should take in what dosage, that is extremely important to know. And if advisable, then one should take these drugs. So I think the take-home message is cholesterol in foods is important, and having foods which are having cholesterol alone up to 300 milligrams of such cholesterol foods is okay. But in foods having saturated fats along with the cholesterol like meat, butter, cheese, etc., greater the risk profile of a person, more the restriction in these foods is advisable. And trans fats is a no-no for everybody because it is harmful for all. And also sugar and salt, the lesser the better. Cholesterol in blood, especially LDL cholesterol, is an important risk factor for most people, and reducing it is beneficial, whether by lifestyle changes or by statins if required. The risk posed by it depends on not only its own blood level, but also the presence of other risk factors. Its treatment with drugs like statin is very important in people at high risk. For people at moderate or low risk, it requires a risk-benefit conversation with one's own doctor. Whatever the level and whatever the risk, a healthy lifestyle consisting of a prudent diet, physical activity, avoidance of smoking and obesity, and control of hypertension and diabetes are universally important and fundamental to disease prevention. So it has been good talking to you, and if you have any questions or comments, you can please put them down, and you can subscribe to this channel so that it can help us update you on such videos in future. Thank you very much for your listening.